Thank you.
Yes, it was very informative indeed. So, moving on, did you know a spacesuit weighs approximately 280 pounds without the astronaut and it takes about 45 minutes to put it on? Interesting, right? So, without any further ado, I would like to invite Master Anurag to tell you more about space exploration. Over to you, Master Anurag.
Yeah, thanks, Pallav. I'll be sharing my screen. So is it visible, the presentation?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay, so we will continue. So good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you all are well. And I am Anurag Maldure, and I am the third year coordinator at Astronomy Club of GCOE Nagpur. And I all welcome you all to this session of Stargaze 2021. Okay. So in this session, we will focus on exploration in outer space, and I expect active participation from your side too. Okay. So let us dive quickly into it without wasting our time. So to begin with, I want you to first imagine that how big the universe is. Means you almost have imagined something really big, vast, and never-ending. Okay. So when I say the word universe, so can you please quickly tell me what universe exactly means to you? Means it will be better if you can write it in the chat box. Just a line will do good. Means I am asking that what do you think universe is? Okay, so I'm getting responses. Span of space time. Okay. Anything else? Everything around us visible or non-visible? Yeah, that's for sure. Everything. Okay, okay. Universe is a vast terrain of which we are also part of. Okay, okay. You all are correct. One says on the other. So I will try to answer this. Okay. So if I compare myself to the Earth, okay, so I will be like a very small, like a say a very fine dot. When the Earth is compared to this Earth is compared to this solar system, so it is a fraction of it, and our solar system is again a part of this bigger Milky Way galaxy. Okay, and our galaxy is one of the many galaxies that is exist in this universe, and it's like a never ending. It's like a infinity, and is continuously is enlarging. So imagine the units of distance and time that are actually associated with it. Okay, so it's really hard to imagine. What I mean is it's something truly infinite. So we can simply define universe as everything. Okay, it includes all of the space and the matter and energy that space contains, and of course you and me. Okay, so now comes the next question: that why space exploration? Okay, means what is the need of it? You see that various space organizations around the world and institutions are spending so much money and resources for it. So it could have been used for any other good purpose. So do you think this exploration is worth it? Means all the resources and money that we are putting in it. So you can just type yes or no to so I can get what you think. Yes, yes. Okay. Okay. So most of you agree that it is worth exploring the space. Okay. So what I think, look, there are many possibilities, but the best answer would be that we as humans are curious to explore the unknown. We want to know our place in the universe and the challenges that are faced in this process that leads to our technological advancement. Okay, so the true knowledge that we have acquired and actions that we take today will decide our future. So it becomes necessary that you know what is beyond our planet Earth. Okay, so I hope you are getting my answer. Okay. Also, I would like to ask, can you think of an example where our technology in outer space helps us to explore and understand our planet better? Okay, it means that it will be the vice versa of outer space exploration. Okay, so just think about it. I will surely come to this question at some later point in the session. Okay. So before we move further, I would like to tell that I will try to cover the agenda of this session through slides and explanation, but we have time constraint for this session, and so I would be giving you links of few resources that you can refer to after this session, and so you can continue exploring on your own on the internet, which on which immense resources are already available. So you can feed your curiosity. Okay, so let us continue. Okay. So now comes the next question. What are the means by which we can explore the outer space? So I would like if you could tell me a few. Means, what do you think are the ways through which we can explore the outer space? Space stations, yeah, correct. Space probes, telescope, spectrum scopes, satellites, yeah, it's correct. Uh, any more? Space traveling, yeah. Means that means you are talking that we are sending astronauts, right? Satellite, okay. Okay, see, all of these are correct. Okay, so uh, what we are going to do, we are going to look at these topics. Means first we'll be looking at telescope. I will just give a brief idea. More of this will be covered in the next session. Okay, so telescope, rockets, then spacecraft, then astronauts. Means we are sending the space humans into the space. Then space station, space probes and rovers, artificial satellites, and the last topic. This going into the space means here I will be focusing on some few fundamental concepts. Okay, so now comes the first part, that is telescope. Okay, so telescope is a tool that astronomers use to see far away objects. Okay, so most of the telescopes are large and large telescope. So they work by using a curved mirrors that gathers and focus the light from the night sky. Okay, the mirrors or the lenses on this telescope are called as optics, and these powerful telescopes can detect very dim light that comes from deep space. Okay, so they may contain mirrors or lenses. Okay, so here the left one that you can see here, it is a refracting telescope. Okay, so it uses lenses, and a lens bends the light passing through it, and it makes the far away things look closer. Okay, and here on the right, this is the simple reflecting telescope. So it uses a mirror, which is as compared to the lens is very thin, and a bigger mirror also does not have to be thicker. Okay, so that's the advantage of it. And the light is concentrated by means here you can see the light is coming, and it is bounced off through the mirror, and through this mirror it is goes into the eyepiece. Okay, so and these larger telescopes are built into observatories where means, computers are also involved, and these means observatory basically are protecting these big telescopes, and these are generally situated in remote areas, in hilly areas. Okay, so there is no light pollution. Okay. So there are different types of telescopes other than these two types that we mostly are familiar about. But more of this telescope will be covered in the next session. So here, what I want to tell you is this: look at these pictures. Means here we are selecting different types of electromagnetic spectrum. Means these telescope work from different EM spectra. So like the radio waves, the infrared radiation, visible light, ultraviolet radiation, X-rays, and high energy X-rays. Okay, so you can see the difference in the picture. Okay, so that they can capture. So next is rockets. Okay, rocket, it is a engine that makes us possible to send astronauts, satellites, say robots, telescopes, and other things into the space. Okay, so without we won't be able to travel beyond Earth's atmosphere. So knowing rocket science is important if we want to explore the outer space. Okay, so here I will try to cover the fundamentals. So let us begin. So rocket can mean a different thing. Like most of you would imagine it as a tall, thin, cylindrical structure. Okay, that launches into the space. But as I mentioned, that rocket is a type of engine. Okay, so a rocket burns the fuel to produce a jet of gas. So these hot gases expands rapidly, and they are like blasted on the downwards on the ground, and which causes a force to push it upwards. So this is the basic principle behind this lift off. And as we all know that Newton's third law, that is every action has equal and opposite reaction. So here is the case, means high velocity gases that are coming out applies the pressure on the ground, and as the reaction falls, the rocket is pushed upwards. Okay. So there are mainly two types of rocket engines. Means some use liquid fuel, and the main engines on the space shuttle orbiter use liquid fuel, while the other rockets use solid fuel. Means on the side of the space shuttle, you must have seen the rocket boosters. Okay, so they use solid fuels, and fireworks and model rockets also use solid fuels, that we burn in the Diwalis. Okay, and scientists are working on developing new rockets, so they will definitely take astronauts and satellites even further in future missions. Okay, so now coming to the history part. Okay, the first rockets were that we know were used in China in 2011th century. Then these rockets were used for fireworks. Armies also used them in wars. So in the next 700 years, people made bigger and better rockets. Many of these were used for wars too. Like in 1969, the US launched the first men in the to the moon via Saturn V rocket. Okay, so which was really powerful. Okay. Now we also have evidence of rockets in India much before the this space race between US and USSR began. Okay, so Tipu Sultan, who used to be a brave ruler of Mysore, used world's first rocket against the Britishers. This happened even before the World War, means World War missiles when they were developed. Okay, so what they did, they made here you can see they made these rockets by using long bamboo sticks, and they used 2 kg gunpowder, and here at the front you can see they attached the swords. So these rockets weighed around 3 to 4 kg, and they could travel up to like 1.5 kilometers. Okay, so it gave them outstanding performance. Means they could fire multiple rockets at the same time, and they defeated the British cavalry. So even today, this Tipu's rocket it displayed at museum in uh, Woolwich, London. Okay. Now let us see the parts of a rocket. Okay. So this image shows the basic diagram of the rocket. There may be additional parts as that depends as per the mission. So this study of the rockets is a good way to learn the basic of forces and response of say object to the external forces. So rocket is subjected to forces of weight, then thrust, aerodynamics. Okay, so all these need to be considered. So there are four main systems, as you can see here. first is this structural system. Then next you can see here is the propulsion system. Then the payload system you can see, and this is the fourth, that is the guidance system. Okay, so coming to this, the structural system. Okay, first we will look at this. So it is actually the frame that is made from very strong but lightweight materials, like we would expect. It's like titanium or aluminum. It has a thermal protection so that it can keep the heat of air friction during the flight, and the cold temperature that is required to maintain the fuel at very low temperature. Okay. Here you can see at the bottom part the fins are also attached. These are also part of structural system. So this help to give stability to the rocket. Okay. Now this payload system, here at the topmost section you can see this payloads depend on the rocket's mission. Like I said in earlier days, payloads were like fireworks, or in World War II they were nuclear payloads or ballistic missiles. Okay, so they were used for war, and the same rockets were later modified, and today we launch satellites and a wide range of missions for communication. Like these satellites include like for spying, for weather monitoring, for planetary exploration, etc. Okay. So further, these rockets were developed to launch astronauts, like in the Apollo 11 mission, it landed on the moon's surface. Okay. So third is the guidance system. Here, just below this payload system, you can see uh, this guidance system actually consists of sensors and instruments like computer, radars, or communication equipment. So they can steer or say maneuver the rocket during the flight. Okay, so many different methods have been developed to control rocket flights. Okay, in modern days, mostly we can also control this by means the nozzles that are present here in the bottom part. So we can control the direction. So for this, you would have to study couple. So also in this figure, you can notice that most of the part means most of the volume is the propulsion system, means including this thrusters also. So now one more question arises that why airplanes and rockets are different. Means I mean that rocket is a type of engine, while most of the airplanes you must have heard that there is jet engine. So how is this rocket propulsion different from jet propulsion? What is the difference between their working? And when both of these vehicles can help you fly in the sky. Okay. So any idea? Audio is too low. Am I audible properly? Hello?
Yes, you are audible. To me, at least you are audible properly.
Okay, okay.
If anyone
Fine.
else can confirm Anurag's audio, they can,
Okay.
panelists.
Aeroplane is by upward lift. Yeah, it's correct. I won't say it like means. I mean, how is rocket propulsion different from what in jet propulsion? Means what is the difference? Means here in the image itself you can see means what is the difference between this? Okay, so you can notice here the oxidizer is carried along with the rocket. So we know that the fuel will burn in the engine, okay, and it will produce the power. Okay, so this is the oxidation process, and the rocket is different from jet in this because the main difference is the jet propulsion. Okay, and means is that the oxidizer is not carried. Means in the rocket, oxidizer is carried along with the vehicle. Okay, so because there is no air in the in space, there is vacuum. So we will require that. Also, we need to means generate what we can say impulse. Means we need to generate high amount of fuel in very less time. So we need to carry oxygen along with us. Okay. Also, as someone said that in airplanes lift is there. So as I said, that third Newton's third law is applicable in case of the rocket, but in case of the airplanes, mostly what works is this Bernoulli's principle. So here you can see the wings of the airplanes are like this is called aerofoil structure. Okay. So what happens is that air above this upper surface will travel at a faster speed because it has to cover more distance. So what it will result that here it will create the low pressure area whereas it will be high pressure area. So net force is exerted in upward direction. Okay. So due to this the lift is created. Lift is also created in case of rockets, but the thrust that is generated is immense, so it will drive the rocket upwards. So this is due to the Bernoulli's effect that airplanes can fly. Okay. Then coming to the combustion part. Okay, so this is the basic combustion cycle in the rockets. So after an initial heat is given, the fuel and oxygen combine to release tremendous amount of heat and byproduct, that is hot gases that escape, and this cycle continues till the oxidizer or fuel is finally exhausted. Now coming to the this diagram, this explains the basic forces on the rocket. Okay, so here as you can see there is a lift force, drag, weight, and this thrust. Okay, so what happens when the due to the combustion, this rocket moves upward. So as it is moving through the atmosphere, so it will be acted upon by drag in downward position. Okay, here it you can see, and lift will always act along a perpendicular direction to the motion. So lift will act like this, and this will be controlled by the fins and also where the rocket will actually head. Weight, as usual, it will act downwards, and thrust is the main force that pushes it upward. Okay, so as you can see, this is the okay. I missed something. Okay, so this must be rate. Okay, so this is the momentum transfer rate. Here, dot means per unit time. Okay, so as you know, momentum is mass into velocity. So this the gases and all this mass is ejected at particular velocity, and this generates the momentum. So as you know, acceleration is change in momentum. So this gives the thrust. Along with this, there is also pressure force. So I will come to this part. So now here is the example. Means here you can see on the left hand side, this is the Ariane 5 rocket of European Space Agency. So here, what I want to tell you is that see this part. This is the rocket boosters I was talking about. So this generally contains the solid fuels. Okay, and as I mentioned, this force net thrust that will be acting is a change in momentum plus this. Okay, this part comes from like pressure is equals to force upon area. So force acting will be pressure into area. So pressure difference that is created, this pressure outside and pressure of due to ejection, this is difference of that into area. So along with the momentum, it gives the net thrust the rocket. Okay, so this is the first kind of propellant, that is the solid propellant. Along this, we also have the liquid propellant. Okay, so as you can see in this image, and also there is a third type, that hybrid means combination of these, and you will also find that there are electric and nuclear propulsion, but we will not discuss it here. Okay, so let us have a look at this liquid propulsion. Okay, so so here you can see the what I want to tell you is the placement of this. This is placed in the upper stage of the rocket. Okay, so these are cryogenic, means it needs to be stored at very low temperature, since these gases like fuels like hydrogen and oxygen. So these are liquefied. So they are stored at very low temperature. And these when combined, these go into this, these are pumped into the combustion chamber through which combustion occurs and the mass is ejected in the backward direction. So this generates the thrust. Okay, again the same equation. Okay. Then comes to the hybrid rocket. As I said, this is a combination of liquid and solid propulsion. Means here you can see this is a solid propulsion. So it can means any of them can be like fuel or oxidizer. Any one of them can be either liquid or solid. So consider if this is the fuel. So oxidizer is like pumped into this, pumped onto directly onto this fuel, and here the combustion will occur, and it will generate the thrust in forward direction. Okay. So this is like analogous to this burning of candle. As you can see, means as I said, this fuel is a solid part. When the oxidizer uh, comes in contact with it, so what happens? And we have given the initial heat. So what happens that combustion will occur, and this will generate the byproduct, that is the gases. Okay. So this is the analogy to hybrid rockets. Okay. And another important concept in rockets is staging. Yes, you must have heard it. Staging is a combination of several rocket sections or stages that are fired in specific order, so that they can, once they burn completely, they will detach, and after that remaining sections or the stages will continue to move forward. Okay. So why do we need to have staging? Means can't we keep it this rocket as a like a single piece? Means why are these parts separate? So answer is that means all rockets use thrust generated by a propulsion system, as I said, to overcome the weight of the rocket. But in most of the rockets, the weight is means weight of the payload is only a small fraction. Means what is the total weight of the rocket? Okay, and most of the weight is due to this fuel and oxidizer part. So most of it is utilized when the rocket means escapes the atmosphere during the ascent stage. Okay, and so carrying these empty tanks is not desired. So in order to lighten the weight of the vehicle and to achieve the orbital velocity, so most of the launchers discard this vehicle portion of this vehicle in staging. So further staging can gain more momentum and velocity. So here in the image, as you can see, these rocket boosters are getting separated. So this is the example of parallel staging. Okay. While in the next part, as you can see, this only one component got separated. So this is the serial staging. Okay. Now in this next picture, you can see this exploded view of the rocket. Again, we will not go into each part, function of each part, but just have a look at it. Means this payload system, then this guidance system and propulsion, and this is the main propulsion system. So if you want to learn more about how exactly these parts work, so you can use this app called Space Flight Simulator. It's available on Play Store, and you can have fun. Means you can learn that how you can launch a mission. And tutorials are available in the app, and you can also refer YouTube. Okay. Now this picture shows the fleet of the current ISRO rockets. So as you can see, these vary from 40 kg to like 4,000 kg. And propulsion here uses solid and liquid and cryogenic. So cryogenic is generally used in upper stages. Okay. So GSLV Mark III is currently the strongest of all the rockets. Now coming to the manned spacecraft. Okay. So now we have talked about rockets. Now let us talk about the vehicle that carries human into the space. Okay. So manned or crewed spacecrafts are vehicles that can carry human beings outside the Earth's atmosphere. Okay. So back in history, Yuri Gagarin was the first who flew into the space via Vostok 1 spacecraft in 1961. It was during the Cold War era that USA and USSR were interested in collecting information about Moon and other planets. So, and more distant astronomical objects. So, crewed spaceflight, especially the US program after the first spate of show off flight, tended to about research as well as spectacle. The Apollo 11 landing on Moon in 1969, for example, is a milestone. Today, the US and the Russian Federation continue this crewed spaceflight, mostly in association, and they deploy it for maintenance of, say, scientific, military, or commercial satellites, and with the ISS, that International Space Station. So the bulk of this research is devoted to problems that will be related to human habitation in space. So now coming to this next question. Can you name the 5 orbiters that were used by NASA during their 30 years program? So I want answers from your side. Yes, can you name even one of them? If you are able to name it, please write it in chat box. Hawk, no, Hawk is not there. Okay, let me tell you. They were the 5 were Atlantis, Challenger, Columbia, Discovery, and Endeavour. Even this space shuttle you must have seen in TV or in movies. Okay, so they 5 were important because almost 130 flights were carried out, and it carried people to the space. The space shuttle flew or orbited the Earth. So NASA had been using 3 orbiters when the space shuttle program actually ended. So they were Discovery, Atlantis, and Endeavour. And 2 of these, as you might know, the Challenger and the Columbia were lost due to accidents. And another one is a Enterprise that was never sent to space. Okay. So here you can see some successful spacecraft that are built till date, starting from this Vostok 1 to this upcoming spacecraft. Okay. So now there are questions like what did the space shuttle do? Actually, it could carry up to 7 astronauts, and it was like a moving van. And the space shuttle carried means even the large parts of the International Space Station. We will coming to this part later on, but it helped to build it. Then another important payloads that it carried was Hubble Space Telescope, the Chandrayaan X-ray Observatory, uh, even the probes like Galileo, Magellan. Okay, so the space shuttle was like as I said, science lab. Many experiments were carried out. Okay. The last mission of this space shuttle, this means here as you can see, it was in 2011. After that, NASA was dependent on Russia, but as you must have heard that SpaceX is currently launching the astronauts and supply into the space, which is owned by Elon Musk. Now, next question is what are the parts of the space shuttle? Okay, so space shuttle, as I'm specifically mentioning this spacecraft. So as you can see, these white ones are the rocket boosters. This is the main fuel tank, and this 3 will be consumed during the ascent stage. And what goes beyond that is this main aeroplane like thing. Okay, so this is called the orbiter. The next question is why did space shuttle program stop? Means I said that there were 135 means successful missions. So why did it actually stop? So it has 2 reasons. First was the cost. Means each mission means each flight costed around say $450 million. Okay, so that's a huge amount of money. And second is that each mission had very long waiting period. Means for a mission, say it almost took 54 days. And after the Challenger disaster, in which means 7 astronauts died, okay, in 1986, and again in 2003, the Columbia disaster, in which 7 members, including Kalpana Chawla, so they were killed during the re-entry. So after that, it took almost 88 days to launch a mission. And due to this, means other customers who were wanting to put their satellites were uh, not preferring it. So a safer, cheaper, and faster alternative was the need of the hour. So this program was discarded. Now what is the future of the human space flight? Okay, so today private space organization like SpaceX is already launching humans into the space, and with the other commercial space ventures like say Blue Origin, which is owned by Jeff Bezos. Okay, as you might know, he's the owner of the Amazon, and the other companies like Boeing are making rapid progress in this field. So the cargo spacecraft from the USA, Japan, Russia, European Union also send their supply to the ISS currently. Okay, so we can expect further improved vehicles in the future. Now coming to the astronaut part, means you must have imagined the fascinated about becoming an astronaut and traveling into the space. Well, it seems very appealing, but becoming an astronaut is not an easy task in the first place. Okay, it is a very demanding career. It has many pros and cons. Okay. So the word astronaut comes from two words, that is astron and nauts, which means sailor, star sailor. Okay, and in the different parts of the world, they are called by different names. Like in Russia, you would find cosmonauts, which means universe sailors, and Indian cosmonauts have been mentioned as Gagannauts or so Vyomnauts, where Gagan and Vyom means sky. So for becoming an astronaut is difficult, and even after selection, most of the time they spend is on the Earth only, means preparing for mission or contributing to another ongoing mission. So coming to the first astronaut, who was Yuri Gagarin, as I said, in 1969 he went into the space. Okay, and after that, like as you all know, we also have means, successful mission to the Mars, moon. Okay, not Mars, sorry. And even few animals have been set in initial stages for experiment. Now, what do they carry with them? Okay, I'm sure that you must have seen in movies that they wear such orange kind of space suits. So, have you wondered that what exactly is its function? So this is called advanced crew escape suit, okay, or the pumpkin suit, and it is a full pressure suit that is generally worn by space shuttle crews for ascent and during the ascent and descent part of the space flight. Okay, so it came from U.S. Air Force, and after the Challenger disaster. Okay, so these are orange colored, or more specifically say international orange, because it easily gets highlighted in means any background, means this color is easily highlighted. So it is a one piece pressure garment assembly integrated with pressure bladders and ventilation system. Okay, so oxygen is fed into this at the thigh part, left thigh, and there is a uh, wall here in this helmet part. So it connects it to the upper, I would say, this helmet, and there is also an anti-suffocation wall, as you can see here. So this drive the carbon dioxide out from the pressure suit. Okay. So the helmet and the gloves are connected to the suit via means connector, and the suit is made up of. It has a Nomex cover. Okay, Nomex, as you know, it can sustain high temperature and it's fire resistant. Okay. Now, apart from this, they also carry light sticks, which are means in the shoulder, and also they can use it for signaling and lighting. They also carry signal mirror for survival radio, motion sickness tablets, chemical lights, knife, cutter, and all this like mittens, flare kit, all this. They also have a life raft, sea diet, drink, parachute in case of emergency. Okay. Now, this again another popular suit that you must have seen is this white color suit. Okay, this is known as extra vehicular mobility unit, or EMU. Okay, so and it is a spacesuit that provides environmental protection, and it supports life and communication for astronauts. Okay, who are performing like activities beyond uh, the spacecraft. Okay, so they can easily survive there for limited time, means till the oxygen is there. So it was introduced in 1981, and it is a two-piece garment, and you can see there are multiple layers stacked in order to save them from any space debris, in smaller space debris that can hit them. Okay. Also, the Russian counterpart is the Orlan spacesuit. It is called. In the right. Okay. So for spacewalk, astronaut needs to wear this EMU. Okay. So you must have seen that the astronauts moving out of space station performing spacewalk. EMU. Okay. As a this tubing size, you can see this help to keep them cool in like extreme environment. Now another question is why hasn't India carried out its own manned mission? Okay, so before I answer this question, many astronauts like you have heard, like Rakesh Sharma and Kalpana Chawla, have been part of other space agencies mission, but means like Russia, USA, and China are the only ones that launch their own spacecraft. Okay. So ISRO is also going to launch this, astronauts into the space. But the main means reason behind why they haven't sent it till now is that ISRO aims at a betterment of India. So like communication, remote sensing, and other things have more priority. The moons and Mars mission that were carried out, it was due to the means support from the government, and other plans for like telescope, astrosat, and other missions are given more priority. So human space flight was not a priority, but it doesn't mean that we haven't done anything in this part. So like the space capsule recovery experiment, it was conducted in 2000s, and the astronauts, which are means Vyomnauts from Indian Air Force, are currently under training in Russia, and they will be means going into the space in upcoming timeline in 2021. Okay, by the end of this year, I guess. Okay, so it was delayed due to this global pandemic. Now coming to the next part, that is a space station. Okay, so it is actually a large spacecraft. Okay, that orbits around the Earth, and it is like a space habitat since we humans can survive there. So what we do is that we put the space station into the orbit, and hence we also call them orbital space station. Now another thing is that they have a docking ports, okay, that allow other spacecraft to dock, means connect to them, and the supplies are sent to the astronauts living there, like SpaceX Dragon is currently supplying. So we can also describe it as a space laboratory. As I said, various experiments can be carried out. Okay. Now comes the next question: that what is the need of such spacecraft, means space station? Sorry. So means much of the means logistics are involved. Okay. So the purpose of maintaining such orbital outpost depends on mission. Means like there have been space stations before this ISS also. Means they had military purpose, or say for science, like the ISS we have today. Okay, so these are like laboratories that help us to carry out various experiments. Then even due to this, some everyday products like well-known products like the memory foam, then freeze dried food, firefighting equipment, then space blanket, uh, laser swimsuits, and even the CMOS image sensor that are present in our smartphone camera were actually developed due to this means space missions. Okay. Also, this also helps us to understand the effect of microgravity in our human bodies, since humans have been there since a very long time. Okay. So now back in the history, the space station existed, means before existent, it was a proposed idea in 1950 by scientist Werner von Braun. Okay, so he proposed a like a wheel-shaped space station. So the first space station that was launched was in 1971, and the current, the only space station I would say that is present is ISS, that has been built by 16 nations. Okay, and it has been occupied since 2000. So here you can see I have means put some of the space stations since 1971. Like here you can see this Salute 1, Salute 7, then Skylab, and this one is the Mir. Okay, so you can see there means time period like 7, 15, 175 days, 3000 days. Then okay, so as it means this was during the 175 days, means very early days. So we had gained so much knowledge till then that nowadays like the ISS is I said is functional since 2000. Okay, so we have gained a lot of the knowledge from this. Now let us have a look at the International Space Station. Okay, as I said, it is a large spacecraft that orbits around the Earth. Okay, and many astronauts, means a crew of 6 astronauts, currently lives there. Okay, so several nations works together to means maintain this spacecraft in the orbit. So here, this is the exploded view, and the mass of the ISS is around like 925,000 pounds, and the solar arrays that you can see here can generate up to 75 to 90 kilowatts of power. So that's huge. And these solar arrays also carry this long truss. So these actually has tubings, and actually I would call it a truss. So this act as a radiator, means from this end, so to say this end, so temperature will vary greatly. So this needs to be maintained, and thus does that. Also there are like robotics arms that are here, as you can see, are involved. So they also help us in maintenance and carrying out experiments. So each module, means here you can see each module is called as node, and it connects the parts of the space station. Also there are like think many docking ports through which 8 spaceships can be attached at a time. So they deliver the supplies and even the astronauts from time to time. So till date, like I say, okay, till date, like 242 astronauts have from 19 countries have actually visited these ISS. And as I said, 6 astronauts currently stay there. And this whole space station moves at around 8 kilometers per second. Okay, and it orbits or in around every 90 minutes. Okay, so it's a really huge speed. Now coming to this part, this is the Tianwen space station. Okay, so this is the upcoming China's like space station they are trying to build, and it was like currently in news because this rocket that was used for launching it. This is a uh, Long March 5B. Okay, so what happened is that after launching the main control module into the space, its debris, means during the re-entry part, it was not destroyed, or as I said, they are not properly re-entered. So due to this, like there were many speculations like where it would land, and finally it was reported that it landed somewhere uh, near Maldives. Okay, so there was no like life harm, but it was definitely it could have been. And also it was not the first time that such rockets have crashed, means since this March 5B rocket uh, already had means its debris has fallen in back in 2020, means it has 2016 I would say, and it damaged some like villages in West Africa. Okay, so the space agencies must be responsible for safely carrying out this mission. So now you might think that why India does not build a space station. Okay. So well, the answer is that ISRO plans to have its own space station after the first manned mission, that is, as I said, is Gaganyaan, in the upcoming time. So once they are successful, so they will work on making indigenous space station in coming say 5 to 7 years. Okay, I have read it. So India could also have joined the ISS, but they haven't. So what's the reason? Is that ISS means it was to be, I think, decommissioned in 2016, I guess, but it has been extended to like 2024 or 2028. So means not much time is left before the decommission of this space station. Also, back in the days, means when the nuclear tests were carried, so US had put sanctions of India, like after the Pokhran test and all. So due to that part, we were not able to join the ISS community. So, so if we put our own space station, so we will be like able to carry out research in various subjects, like some of you said that biology and this. meteorology, microgravity, and all sorts of things. Okay, so it will be beneficial. So now coming to the next part, these probes and the rovers. Okay, so probe is a robotic spacecraft that travels through space to collect means scientific information. Okay, so note that these probes do not have astronauts. Okay, so this just send the data back to the Earth via antennas. Whereas a rover is a planetary means surface exploration device. Okay, so that is designed to move across the surface of the planet or any celestial body. So some of these rovers have been designed as land vehicles to transport members of human spacecraft also, like in Apollo mission they had some vehicle sort of thing, and others have been partially or fully autonomous robots, like the recent one, the Perseverance, that was sent to the Mars by NASA. Okay, so it was robotic. So once upon a time, these space robots were like so science fiction. Okay, so it came, but as the time advanced, it became a reality, and it helps us to explore the solar system and reach the spaces that mere humans cannot reach alone. Okay. And what they do is they collect samples, they assemble and fix equipment structures. They take measurements for astronauts. Okay, so they can explore planets with cameras, providing scientists with insight to say atmosphere composition of a planet, then landscape, what is the topology, then the conditions that are there at faraway places. Okay. Now coming to the space probes. Okay. Uh, Space probe, as I said, it is an unpiloted and device that uh, the information uh, uh, this space probe, and so the transmission antenna sends data back to the Earth. So example of this space data that these space probes can gather, like they can send back photographs or information on gravitational field of celestial bodies. Okay. Many space probes study Earth or major properties of space, and other probes use telescopes and other instruments to study planets, stars, galaxies that are really far away. Okay. So uh, it may make a one-way journey. Okay, it does not needs to come back to Earth in most of the cases, and different type of probes collect different data depending on the mission. So humans have been sending space probes since 1950. Like the Sputnik one was the first space probe that was sent in 1957. Okay. So after that, United States also sent Explorer one. Then they had learned many things, and this was the beginning of the space race, you can say. In 1962, like the Marnier 2 flew past the Venus, and it helped us to confirm that Venus is actually very hot. Okay, like another space probe, say Marnier 4, was the first space probe to capture a picture of a planet. Okay, like Marnier 4 flew past Mars, and it showed that it had cold, cratered, moon-like surface. Okay. Then the Marnier 9 also arrived at Mars and became the first probe to orbit or circle another planet, means it orbited Mars. Okay. And it also helped us to know that the largest volcano exists on the surface of the Mars. So next generation of probes will study, say, comets, asteroid, and even the currently ongoing Mars. Okay. So till now, the space probes have visited moons, asteroid, comets, and other planets in the solar system. Okay. So now coming to their classification, they are of three types. That is interplanetary, orbiter, and lander. So first one here, as it said, it is a interplanetary, means it flies past by celestial body. Like example here is the Voyager 1. Okay. Then orbiters are placed in orbits around the celestial body. Okay. So like this is the example. This is the Magellan. Okay. which was put in orbit of the Mars planet. And then example of this third one, that's lander. So landers are actually land on the surface of a celestial body, like you can see here. This is the Pathfinder. Sorry, Pathfinder. Okay, so it was sent to land on the surface of the Mars. And this if slingshot effect. Okay, so this is slingshot effect is a way of using the motion of the planet to accelerate space probe. Okay, towards other planet. Okay. So more, what actually happens is that gravitational attraction is used as a like a slingshot. Means it grabs the momentum of the planet, okay, and it transfer it to itself. Means as the space probe advances, so it will just grab some momentum of the planet and it will advance like that. So this idea might seem a bit absurd, but look at the mass of the planet. It's like tremendous as compared to the space probe. So taking a small amount of momentum won't be like what I would say absurd. So we will not get into the vector diagram. I would rather say that you study it on your own, so you will have a better idea of it. Means you can watch a few videos and get more clarity on it, rather than me telling about this slingshot effect. Now, coming to this next part, rovers. Okay, rovers arrive on a spacecraft and are used in such conditions that are very different from Earth, and so they are made like very durable. Okay, they can withstand high levels of temperatures, pressure, dust, etc. Okay, so they are required to be autonomous because like rovers are sent on Mars for exploration. So the problem in controlling them is we cannot control them in real time. Means even this like for example, this was sent to the moon. So like if it is sending back signal, like if it was on Mars, so it would take actually a delay of like say 3 to 21 minutes somewhere. So they need to be autonomous. Means they should be capable of operating on their own. Okay, so they are like programmed for that. Okay, so they don't need input every time. Here in this image, actually, this is a Lunokhod 1. That is the rover that landed on the surface of the moon in 1970s. Okay, so it was remotely controlled, and it was launched by Soviet Union back then. So it had been like functional for 11 months. So rovers have several advantages over landers that just land on the surface. Like rovers can examine more territory as compared that they displace. They can means directed to interesting features means as we can command them, and they can also contribute to like knowledge of how remote robots can work in such environments. Also, robots have advantage over orbiting spacecraft that they make observations to a microscopic level and can conduct physical experiments there. But also, it comes with disadvantage that like there are high chances of failure due to landing and other risks. Like in the Chandrayaan 2 mission, we had seen that the lander failed to have a soft landing. So eventually, the rover was also means, what I would say about damage. Okay, so the mission was not successful. Okay. So that's it. Okay, that's about it. So here in this picture, you can see this is the Perseverance rover, which was recently means, landed on Mars on 18th of Feb, okay, 2021. So it was designed to explore the crater on the Mars surface that is named as J0, and it is almost this rover is almost like a size of a car. Okay, and its objective will be like it will be looking at like if Mars actually supported some kind of microbial life. Okay. So it will be exploring that on the Martian surface. So there are various components, and you can see a total of 23 cameras are there. Like some 9 engineering cameras. It will be designed for specific purpose. Then science cameras. Okay, and this entry and descent camera. Okay, as you can see, HazCam is this help in navigation. You can mass scan. So you can know more about it. I will be providing it in a resource file. Okay. Now coming to the next topic, it is going into the space. So I would like to ask two questions. What should be the speed means an object must attain in order to get into the space on the ground? Also, can we travel towards the moon in a straight path in order to safely land on the surface of say moon or any other planet? So can you answer these two questions? Yeah, escape velocity. Yes, that's very true. And the second question means you must have studied it in your 12th class. Okay. That's something. Okay, so you must have an idea that it will not travel along a straight path. Okay, so it will have a definite trajectory. So we will come to this part in next slide. Okay, so I will explain it there. So as you have correctly mentioned that its escape velocity, like some have mentioned even 11.2 kilometer. So just let me just have a like quick overview. So when we equate this kinetic energy of the object that is launched from the Earth, and we equate it to the magnitude of potential energy. So, and we are assuming that there is no friction, means loss of energy due to friction. So we can see that escape velocity comes out to be under root 2 gmm by r. Okay, where g is the universal gravitational constant, m is the mass of the means here as you can see planet. Okay, it is not the mass of the object. So escape velocity does not depend on mass of the object. And here r is the means distance from the center of the gravity of the planet. Okay. So you all must have known this. Okay. Just I would like to just focus on this. Mass of the Earth is like 10 to power 24 times kg, and g this is g value is determined experimentally and it's constant. Okay. Even in yesterday's session, I think Shantanu had means emphasis on this. Okay. So Earth like Moon escape velocity is like 11.2. When you compare it to the say Mercury, okay, so it will have less. Like Moon, okay, like if I give the example of Moon, it comes out to be approximately 2.3 kilometer per second, which is due to the lower mass of the Moon. So as there is lower mass, so this escape velocity is quite low for gases. So that's the reason why there is no atmosphere. And so gases will just escape into the space. Okay. Now coming to the concept of orbit. So all of you must be familiar with the term orbit, right? So we can say orbit is a fixed path that around repeating path that the object takes around. So orbits can be of different shapes like circular, elliptical, or similar to oval or elongated shapes. Okay, so eccentricity comes into it. So note that this object in orbit is called satellite. Okay, and it can be natural, like Earth has moon. Or it can be man-made, like the International Space Station. Okay, it is also a satellite. Now we know that satellites that orbit the Earth, including the moon, do not always stay at the same distance. Okay, what I mean is that they sometimes are closer and sometimes are farther away. Like you can see here, this distance and this distance is not constant. Okay. So the closest point to where this satellite, even this means moons, closest point is called as perigee, while the farther point is called apogee or aphelion. Okay. So Earth reaches its aphelion during summer in northern hemisphere. This is because the orbit is elliptical in shape and it has two centers. Okay, and Kepler's law of planetary motion are applicable here. Also note that the time it takes for the satellite to orbit this uh, in one orbit, full orbit, is called its period. Okay, for moon which orbits around the earth, it roughly takes about 1 month or 28 days. Okay. Also note that this plane of orbit is not always in plane of the orbiting body. Okay, so there is an inclination. So I will come to this in the next slide. Before that, I would just like to mention these orbits. Okay, there are three types of Earth orbit. First is the lower Earth orbit, mid Earth orbit, and high Earth orbit, or geosynchronous orbit. Okay. So you can see this distance associated, like up to 2000, up to 35,000, and up to greater than 36,000 kilometers from the surface of the Earth. Okay, and as you can see, this geosynchronous orbit is almost like say 1/10 of the distance from the moon. Okay. Uh, Also, one question that I would like to address is that do they actually stay in the like do the artificial satellites, don't they deviate from their orbit? So yeah, they do deviate. Okay, so there are yes, thrusters in it, so that correct its trajectory time to time. And also another question is that why would satellites stay in the orbit and means like the moon would stay in the orbit and not fall? So this is because as you have seen that centrifugal force is acting towards the means Earth. If we take the example of moon, and the outside force, sorry, I uh, spelled it, I think, centripetal force. Okay, that is due to gravity is acting towards the Earth. It's like this, and this is gravity, and opposite to this is the centrifugal force. Okay, so this is balance in the orbit, so it does not fall like it is in the state of uh, uh, freely falling body. Okay. So it experiences no force. So as a mentioned here, you can see this height of the orbit is, between the satellite and the Earth surface. So it determines how quickly it would move. Like if a satellite is orbiting near to the Earth, so it will take less time. Whereas compared to this, this will relatively take lower time. Geostationary means if there is a satellite, it will be if we see it from the surface of the Earth, it will be like constant. Okay, it will seem like it is in one place. It is not moving. Whereas you can see all these satellites in this range moving. Okay, so that's why the geosynchronous is there. Now another concept is eccentricity. Okay, so eccentricity means the shape of the orbit. Means it is referred to the deviation from circular, means exact circularity. So if a perfect circle, it will have e equals to 0. Like if it deviates, like eccentricity will increase. Okay, so the elliptical orbit will be formed. Okay, another aspect that is considered is the inclination. As I said, if this is the orbital path, so it will have some inclination, and this is called means this angle is called as orbital inclination. Okay. Now coming to this part, orbit velocity. So you also must have studied this in the previous classes. Okay. So it is the speed at which object must achieve that in order to keep the body in particular orbit. Means if it is orbiting this planet, so what is the speed that is required to maintain this in this orbit? Okay, so that is the orbital velocity. So to find the orbital velocity for circular orbit, okay, we equate the gravitational force to that of the uh, centrifugal force. Okay, so rearranging, we get the orbital velocity as under root gmm by r. Okay, so this is root 2 times the orbit root 2 times of orbital velocity equals to escape velocity, as we saw earlier in earlier slide. Okay, so this is the relation between them. just for information. So now the question to the second question that I asked. So should a object travel straight in order to land on the surface of another planet? So here I will be addressing that. So it will have to follow some trajectory. Okay, and there are two popular ways of switching between two orbits. Okay, so the first one is a Hoffman transfer orbit. Okay. So in orbital mechanics, the Hoffman transfer orbit is an elliptical orbit that is used to transfer between two circular orbits of different radii. So Hoffman transfer is a half of elliptical. As you can see, this number 2 path. Okay, so this is the Hoffman transfer, and it touches the means it is, you can see it's tangent to both these orbits, means number 3 and number 1. So it is tangential to both these orbits. Okay, so in order to move from orbit number 1 to orbit number 3, we would have to means it will to take two acceleration or two high thrust impulses at this part. So it gains del v, and at this part we will have to give it this impulse. So in order to switch between these orbits. Okay. This Hoffman transfer orbit often uses the lowest amount of propellant in traveling between these orbits. But another way is popular is bielliptical transfer orbits. So we will see in this next case. So bielliptical means this path means this 2 and this 3. Okay, this sorry, this green and this yellow one. So it is a bielliptical consists of two half elliptical orbits. Okay, this green and the yellow. From the initial orbit, means here we will have to give the first burn. Okay, so it boosts the spacecraft into the first transfer orbit, this green one, with an apoapsis at this certain point like this. So again at this point we have to give it a second burn. So it will travel along this elliptical path, and again at this third point we would have to give it impulse, so it comes into this final orbit. Means our goal was to reach from this blue orbit to this red orbit. Okay. So note that in this case 3 low thrust impulses were required to means make it travel along a spiral trajectory to this final red one. Okay. So how do we decide that which one is better, either Hoffman or bielliptical transfer orbit? Okay. So it depends. Means what we do is that we consider which is more fuel efficient. Okay, and this is decided by taking the radii to ratio of the ellipse and the critical speed impulse ratio. So these ratios are considered, and that's how we decided that which one would is better for transferring orbit. So now I will just take an example. If this is the Apollo 11 mission profile, so if it was fired from here, so you can see this elliptical path, it entered this orbit, it orbited this, and at a certain point, here we had given impulse, and then it went like this. Similar fashion, you can see it transferred orbit, and finally we landed on the moon. And after some time, as the time passed, so we entered at this point here into this orbit, and again transferring the orbit and coming back to the earth. Okay, so we need to transfer orbit. Again, example is this ISRO MOM mission, that is Mars Orbital Mission. Here also in profile you could see this is actually an example of, I would say, Hoffman transfer orbit. Means first it gained enough velocity, okay, and then it was fired from there. So departure date is here, and this is Mars orbital insertion. So you see there is a means specific time frame, okay, or I will call it time window, in which this transfer can take place. Okay, so that is important. Otherwise, what would happen that it would not reach this means cross it tangentially, it would like deviate and just go somewhere random. So this time window is very important while firing this. Okay. Now coming to the last part. Okay. So this is the last part of this session. As we have already seen what a satellite is. Okay, it is a moving body in an orbit. So satellite is an object, natural or man-made, that orbits something bigger than itself. Like moon is natural satellite of Earth. But there are today thousands of satellites that are currently orbiting our Earth. Like Sputnik 1 was the first satellite that was launched in 1957. So my question is, why do we need artificial satellites around the Earth? Okay, so you see there are many applications. Like satellite can collect data about our planet, and that instruments on ground cannot. Okay. Satellites can also see into the space better than telescopes because there won't be any atmosphere, means clouds interfering, or the dust, or the molecules in atmosphere. Okay, so before satellites, even TV signal didn't cover larger area. Means it was not possible. So due to these satellites, what we do that we transmit signal to this satellite, and they transmit it back to the Earth at some faraway place. Even satellite phones work on this concept that you can call at a very long distances. Okay, like if you are in ocean, so their normal phones won't work because there won't be any mobile tower. Okay, so with this satellites, today scientists can study Earth and space. As I said, Earth means it is like remote sensing. Okay, so they provide information about clouds, ocean, topography, and we can measure the gases in the atmosphere. What is the ozone percentage? Like all that stuff. Okay, so even we can detect wildfires, volcanoes. Okay, through their smokes. So all this information helps scientists to predict weather, climate, and also helps to like track diseases and famine too. So it helps farmer to know that what crops to plant depending upon the weather conditions, and it also helps in case of natural disasters. Okay. So some satellites may fly near or orbit the other planets, so it is possible to say look for evidence of water on Mars, or get us even close-up pictures of Saturn's ring. Okay, that uh, are too far away from Earth. So there are many different kinds of satellites, like say communication. Then we have remote sensing, navigation for weather satellites, geostationary satellites, polar, nano satellites. Geostationary, as I said, these remain means this appears to be stationary. So like you can focus on a particular area all the 24 hours, while these polar satellites, these will be orbiting very fast, like almost 5 to 6 times a day. So like they will be keeping an eye on a like a larger area, so they can't focus on really one space. So also, so I had asked a question at the beginning of the session that can you imagine a technology in outer space that can help us to explore and understand our planet better? So I was talking about the satellites only. Okay, as many of you even answered that. So remote sensing does help. Okay. So coming to this slide, here you can see, as I have explained, that they need to be transferred.
Hello, am I audible? Can anyone confirm? Palak? Hello.
as per requirement, and these whole components are like mounted on a frame. Okay, so here, as you can see, this rigid frame, it also prevents some possible damages. Okay. Uh, Also, I would like to mention is that we use tracking systems in our mobile phone. Means it gives us our location. Okay. So, like we rely on the navigation satellites of other countries, like GPS, which is of USA, Galileo, say of Europe. But even ISRO has put up its own navigation satellite system.
Hello, Anurag, you are not audible to the participants. Am I audible to you? Hello? Your mic is mute, I guess. Let me remove it.
Okay, so my mic was muted actually. So what I was talking is that most of our smartphone means currently do not support the Mavic, and we rely on GPS and like Galileo. So the coming upcoming phones with like chipsets like Snapdragon 865 and later on they will support the Mavic system. Okay. Another interesting thing that you can try at home is the Bhuvan portal of ISRO, which is developed by National Remote Sensing Center of India. So there are many functionalities available. Okay, so I will be putting the tutorial means link to this, so you can explore it on your own. Even means like app like Google Earth, these are very basic. They do not provide you such functionality. Okay, so you must explore this Bhuvan portal. Okay, and there are some apps like that I would like to suggest. That this is the Stellarium app. Then you must have known that we can plot the stars and all the features available in the space. Then you can also try this next flight simulator rocket launch schedule. So here you will get the information about ongoing launches, missions that are upcoming, and also the satellite tracker. This will give you an idea that how many means region wise, like how many satellites are there means currently orbiting above your head. Okay, so with this we come to the end of this session. I haven't mentioned about the future scope of space exploration because it is not the agenda of this session. We have just focus on the current scenario. Okay, and the progress of science will need to means progress of mankind, and future holds many opportunity. So let me again clarify that I am not an expert of this vast field. Okay, there are tremendous research and everything is going on. Okay, and I have tried my best to deliver these topics within the time constraint. I have exceeded, I think, 15 minutes, but that's okay. So I hope that you have learned and enjoyed this session, and I hope that you all will continue this space exploration further on your own. So that's all about this session. So thank you. Okay, I will stop my sharing. So, any questions you would like to ask? Links for the resources. Okay, I will try to send it by today, means after the event. Okay, so I will try my best because I have to add some few things there. So definitely I will send it after the event. Okay, you will get it on mail. Enjoyed the session. What is the difference between liquid fuel and solid fuel? Okay, so I suggest like solid fuel and liquid fuel. Solid fuel is in solid state, while liquid is in liquid state. Means, like I said, for liquid fuel, you consider hydrogen or oxygen. So the as we know that at normal temperature they are gases, but what we do to reduce their volume, so we increase their density by liquefying it. So we need to store it at temperature like around minus 180 degrees centigrade, I guess. So they are cryogenic fuels, means we call them. Also, if any other question. I hope that I was audible throughout the session because I see that I had some fluctuations, I guess. Sir, I want to make a Newtonian reflector type telescope. So from where I can get the mirror blanks or mirrors for telescope. Look, as I said, ki after my session there will be a session on telescopes and even robotic telescopes. So I think that they would be means upcoming speaker would be in better position to answer your question. Okay, so they can better guide you on this topic. Okay, that will, okay. Thank you. This content keeping up. Okay, okay. That means a lot to me. Thank you, thank you. Apps you said apart from Stellar, can you name an app that you said? Can you name other apps you said, please? Look, I will put it into the resource file, the apps that I am suggesting. So you can just get it there. Okay. Any more questions? Thanks for the great session. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Atul sir. I hope that I have answered the questions in the chat box. Okay. Okay. So I think we can move on to the next session.